Today we have an episode of the Apocalypse Rating. I plan to do these episodes once a week, maybe around Friday or Saturday, sort of to describe how I would rate this week in terms of like political events or LGBT rights or just different things going on in my life. And the rating is basically, if I reach 10, I would napalm the US or the state. This is how I get my feelings out into the world. It's kind of scary, isn't it? Okay, so today obviously the topic is religion. I grew up predominantly Catholic until I reached college, to which I left the Catholic faith because I couldn't practice religion that I stood against most of its core beliefs. And so I consider myself now sort of a non-denominational Christian. Puppies. Puppies. Why are you fighting? Why are you fighting? Peace. Love. It's nice. As some of you are aware, I am attending KU University in Lawrence, Kansas, and as such, I am geographically quite close to the cult that is called the Westboro Baptist Church. And yes, I do call it a cult because any religious group that calls for the death of a certain group of people based on biblical reasons, to me, is a cult. And I am well aware that under that definition several religions can be called a cult, but that's not what I'm here to debate today. I am simply saying that I am geographically close to one of the biggest nut houses in the entire nation, and I didn't think it could get any worse than that before I moved here. Once I started following the news roughly 2 years ago, before that I wasn't particularly interested in nationwide events. I was sort of all for advocating for LGBT rights, but I was never really informed of what that could actually entail. So society is always out to prove me wrong, usually in the worst way possible. Mac McLaughlin, you should be placed in an institution. Your ridiculous rhetoric can be paralleled almost directly to Hitler. To those of you who do not know who Matthew McLaughlin is, he is a barred attorney in California who submitted the Sodomite Suppression Act earlier this year. And this act calls for the death of all gays, basically anybody that partakes in a relationship with a same-sex person, by a bullet to the head or any other convenient methods. Yeah, that's what he said. And anybody that supports same-sex relationships or passes about propaganda or is a part of a same-sex pro group will be fined $1 million, imprisoned up to 10 years, or removed permanently from the state of California. All of this in the name of God, so that God does not send his wrath upon the people of the nation, or more specifically California at this point. Hitler impressions aside, because this is a Hitler impression in terms of Hitler believed that he had a right in his theology to remove an entire group of people because they were subhuman and different than he was. This entire Sodomite Suppression Act is religiously and socially flawed. Religiously, it is completely flawed because Christianity's core ideals deal with not judging your fellow man, loving your fellow man, and letting them find their own salvation. Even if you stupidly believe that God gives a damn about same-sex relationships, you are going against Christian ideals by killing them such that they cannot find their own salvation within their lifetimes. So if you truly believe it is a sin, and you don't give them the chance to make peace with God, you are taking their sins upon yourself. Have fun with that, Matt. Further, God already promised with the whole rainbow thing, and I'm well aware of the irony, that he would never wipe out the human race again. Remember? No, because Christianity likes to conveniently forget all of the little extra things in the Bible whenever it suits its arguments. Legally, this act violates so many constitutional rights, I don't even know where to begin. It completely overturns the entire First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, because if a religion supports same-sex marriages and this one particularly doesn't, and it condemns it, it is going against this other religion. So, Establishment Clause and a whole slew of other amendments like the Equal Protection Clause, due process, the whole separation of the branches by trying to say that the court can't rule on this act. I'm sorry, buddy, that's not how it works. You should know. You're an attorney, apparently. So sorry, bruv. Even if you went to a semester of law school, you would know that this entire Sodomite Suppression Act is incredibly flawed in every single way. And that is why Matthew McLaughlin should be disbarred, because there's no way he can advocate on any client's behalf if he can't even understand the basics of how the Constitution works. However, we are not done with the crazies. In Nebraska, there is a Sylvia Driscoll, a 66-year-old woman who adorably submitted a handwritten file claim to a federal court stating that she was suing all the gay people on the earth under God's name. I'm almost willing to let this go aside because this is a 66-year-old little lady who clearly has lived in the backwoods for a while. But the entire thing was rife with logical fallacies, grammatical errors, and just general homophobia. That really was insane. Luckily, there didn't seem to be an entire attorney willing to take on that rodeo because she submitted it herself. And if there had been an attorney willing to take it on, they would have immediately been slapped with sanctions for a frivolous lawsuit. Because it was indeed incredibly frivolous. Sylvia, as cute and adorable as your cursive babble was, God and Jesus are not citizens of the United States or any other country that I'm aware of, and they cannot be sued on the behalf of. And not only that, but you forgot to ask for a remedy, whether that be monetary or an injunction, or I don't know, to imprison all the gay people in the world. I'm not really sure what you were like hoping for, other than the court to say it was a sin. That's your religion standards, not the courts. That's not how the federal court system works. So of course it was thrown out. I mean, if I had been that judge, I would have been like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to do. The crazies are coming out of the woodwork. Also, you cannot sue an entire nebulous group of people. You can't do that. You have to be able to identify people. You have to prove an injury. Did you see too many rainbow flags this year? Well, that's too fucking bad. None of us feel for you. So there is a place called the Blue Valley Behavioral Health Center nearby in your little city of Auburn, Nebraska. You should check it out. Aside from the obvious crazies, and I'm talking about you, Huckabee and Michelle Bachmann and, well, all the other ones, there's a lot. We have much more powerful idiots out there. And yes, I am looking at you, Republican politicians. Alabama, state that doesn't seem to know what the Establishment Clause is. Well, let me spell it out for you a little bit. The Establishment Clause is separation of church and state, which means the state's not supposed to recognize any one religion as its religion. That's the basis. That's It can't get any more basic than that. Not even a basic bitch can get more basic than that. However, Alabama is trying to make it so their government officials, their judicial clerks, their probate judges, anybody who's working in the courthouse, and the ministers, and I don't care about the ministers because the ministers are religious, whatever. However, they're trying to make it so actual government officials, state actors, can refuse to allow same-sex marriage or accept a same-sex marriage. Even probate judges, in terms of a same-sex marriage and their wills, they're trying to get it so that they can just totally throw it out the window. Like, I don't feel like looking at this because it's against my religion. Now, once you become a state actor, you don't get to bring your personal beliefs into your work. You're working for the government. And if you can't handle it, then get the fuck out. End of story. You are not there to exercise your personal beliefs. You're there to do your job. And your job is to file a marriage license. They are a state actor and they're doing state actions, which means that their personal beliefs do not matter. And they shouldn't. If they cannot handle it, then they should be removed, not protected. And they shouldn't be able to discriminate. Which brings about RFRA. Now, we've heard a lot about RFRA since the Hobby Lobby case, but few people actually understand what it is. It is a congressional bill that urges courts to consider religion in a more protective way. However, it has been used as a weapon against the LGBT community for the last 2 years, like, immensely, all the time. We've seen the bill circulate around states last year, and now Indiana's gotten quite a bit of backlash, being the first state to actually put one in that allowed discrimination for sexual orientation. RFRA is religion's way of saying my right to an substantiated belief is more important than your right to shelter, raising children, life, pursuit of happiness, you know, all the things that our nation supposedly stands for. Time and time again, the courts have held that religious beliefs are not more important than other people's fundamental rights. We have a religious freedom part of the Constitution, but they are for beliefs, not actions, which means that several times the courts have held that you can believe whatever you want. You can believe that the government should be run by a purple people eater, but that doesn't mean you can act on it. And it doesn't mean that you can throw people out of your business just because you perceive that they're gay, or you can't not serve a female because you believe she should be at home barefoot bearing some man's children. But here we have people who suddenly think it is their fundamental right to deny people their rights based on personal beliefs. This has apparently never been an issue before, according to the government. Oh wait, African American rights. I remember those. We were taught them for years in school. And it seems like we've forgotten that this is something we've talked about before. And we call that racism, don't we? Those of you who bemoan that the gay agenda is falsely labeling you as a bigot because of your religious beliefs, it's not falsely, you're a bigot. You are taking an entire group of people and acting out against them for something that may or may not have been written in a book by humans more than 2,000 years ago. And I say may have been. Translators and scholars constantly argue over the actual Hebrew translations and ancient Hebrew translations that are found in the Bible. For one, the whole Leviticus passage that everybody loves to cite to, translators can't decide if lie actually means to sleep with, because the word lie with another man as they do a woman, actually the same word is used for the ancient Hebrew word keep. And so some scholars are saying that it actually meant you shall not keep another man as you would a woman, because back then women were slaves, they were property, and they're saying you shall not keep another man in slavery as you would keep a woman. So it might not even mean homosexuality at all, and here you are basing your entire belief on something that you can't even read. People also like to cite back to Sodom and Gomorrah. I would like to point out, and I have read the Bible, the King James Bible, roughly 3 times all the way through, and of course a million times in small passages, but the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah never ever mentioned homosexuality in any version. Instead, they were mentioning lying, stealing, gambling, and other vices. Homosexuality was just tacked on later. Your perceived agenda on homosexuality, like hatred of it, is should be second to lying and stealing and gambling, which is legal a lot of places. Due to the fact that Leviticus might not even speak to homosexuality, and no other portion of the Bible actually does, ever, then I'm inclined to believe that your religious right should never infringe on a person's fundamental right ever. So religion, could you please stop? You're making a lot of people hate your guts, because these arguments are old, they're draconic, they are for a time way beyond our own. There is such a thing as progression as a human race, you know. I mean, people talk about the institution of marriage. The institution of marriage has been forever changing. Before, women were considered property. We changed our last names because we as a person were no longer identifiable. So don't say traditional idea of marriage. There's no such thing as a traditional idea of marriage. So today, I give the apocalypse rating about a 7. Religion's been around a while, so I've kind of become used to its rants and ramblings. So even though religion is pretty much the core reason a lot of LGBT people are suffering nowadays, I can't just wipe it out, unfortunately. So today's apocalypse rating only gets a 7.
Mommy's leaving you. Hey, I'm leaving you.